two of the main things that we really look at are both process, how is the legislature in your government running, and policy is the second part, and that is what is it exactly that we're accomplishing. The process this year was better than I've seen it in my 10 years. The relationship between the governor, the House, and the Senate flowed better than at any point in time. We worked very well together. You didn't see any of the public arguments and really not any of the private arguments because there really weren't any. So the process worked exceptionally well. We had a schedule this year, which was the best I've seen in my 10 years. Legislators knew when they were working and when they weren't working. We got out before April, which is the first time that's happened in about a decade. And this all came on the heels of a special session for redistricting. There was the shortest special session for redistricting in the history of the state of Georgia, saving the taxpayers enormous amounts of money. And on top of that, it was the first time that the maps have ever been cleared by the Department of Justice. So you had a Republican-controlled legislature passing redistricting maps that were so good that the Obama administration even agreed with them for the first time in history. So from a process standpoint, the legislature is probably working better now than at any time in anyone's recent memory. So that part of this Capitol and what happens here is working exceptionally well. The policy side of it is something that we've really been formulating over the last few years, where we have had a number of great ideas come to us. But what we decided to do a little bit different this time was to actually go out across the state and have town hall style meetings all the way in every corner of the state to hear from people. If you think about it, there's 236 people in this General Assembly. There's 10 million Georgians. So the chance of the next great idea coming from the 236 is rather slim compared to the chance of the next great idea coming from the 10 million. And so we have gone around the state and we had these meetings again in every corner of the state. We heard a lot of good ideas from a lot of people. And we ultimately formed that into a list of policies that the Republican Senate wanted to enact this year. It wanted to at least pass out of the Senate, and we were very successful in doing so. So one of the most important things we did and decided as a caucus this year was that fiscal responsibility, transparency, open government, and good government was at the very top of our priority list. And I think we accomplished that yet again. Another balanced budget for the state of Georgia without raising taxes. In fact, we cut taxes. We're one of just a few states that still has a AAA bond rating, which really helps us over the long term anytime we have to build capital projects like schools and reservoirs and highways. So those things are good, but we've added to that two main elements that we've been talking about for quite some time are zero-based budgeting and sunsetting. And we were finally able to pass both of those pieces of legislation this year. Zero-based budgeting requires that on a rotating basis, each department in government will have to build their budget from $0 to the number of dollars they're requesting, so that legislators can look and see every single dollar that's being spent. Right now we do continuation budgeting, which we only see the changes from the previous year, but we really need to see every dollar every year. This will begin that process. The second thing is sunsetting, which is extremely important. It has saved the state of Texas billions of dollars by requiring that every agency, every so often, come before the legislature and explain why they exist, explain what it is they're doing and why they need to continue doing it. And if it's not a proper function of government, we can get rid of it. So we balanced our budget, we maintained our AAA bond rating, we cut taxes, we'll talk more about that in just a minute. We instituted the sunset law and zero-based budgeting. So from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, from a transparency standpoint, the state of Georgia is in better shape today than we've ever been in. And it's important to remember the state of Georgia is still one of the lowest spending states in America on a per capita basis. Between us and the state of Texas, we have been going back and forth between 49th and 50th. This state and this legislature has done an incredible job of managing the dollars that we have. Doesn't mean we're perfect, doesn't mean there's not waste, doesn't mean we can't do better, but we're better than just about anybody else in the country, and that's something we can be proud of. Yeah, when you look at Georgia's budget and you recognize that 6 out of every $10, almost 6 out of every $10 goes to some form of education, you begin to realize that without question is our single highest priority. Now we have pre-K education, we have K through 12, and we have post-secondary education that really compiles our education system in Georgia from the age of 4 years old up to about 22 or 23 years old. And this is really a major function of government. The problem is that we haven't really been seeing the return, especially in the K through 12 portion, that we needed to see. We put a lot of money into it. We're not necessarily getting the return on a statewide basis. I mean, there are pockets of excellent schools. There are some great school systems. But overall, the state has struggled. When you look at SAT scores, when you look at dropout rates, we're not keeping people in school. And then on the standardized tests compared to the rest of the nation, we're not doing necessarily well. We've got to improve that. We've made some changes in the past, some areas which I would characterize as educational freedom that I think will really benefit us. But on a wholesale measure, we haven't really done that much until this year. We were able to pass the constitutional amendment that will go before the voters to ask whether the state can begin to charter schools. If the voters approve that, which I certainly hope they will, I think we're going to see a complete opening of our education system and all sorts of new ideas and new techniques coming into the state that we've never seen before. And that's good. We want competition. We want choice. We want opportunities that we haven't seen before. So that helps. The second part of that is the digital learning bill. That's something I authored, and really one of the best pieces of legislation I think I've done in my career here, and I'm very happy we were able to pass it. This is going to open up a new world of learning in Georgia. We have the opportunity to become a leader as opposed to a follower like we've been so many times before in education. We can be a national leader in digital learning. There's no reason that a kid in South Georgia and a kid in Metro Atlanta should have different opportunities. They should both have the best opportunities, and those opportunities should be the best in the world. Through digital learning, through a digital platform, we now have the opportunity for every student in Georgia to have the chance at a world-class education because they're going to be given opportunities and chances and ways to be educated that we've never seen before. So technology in the education process is critical. With the Digital Learning Act, we're going to be a leader in that aspect as opposed to being near the bottom where we unfortunately have been for so many generations. Pro-jobs tax reform is something that was absolutely necessary. Did we do as much as we needed to do? Absolutely not. Did we take a good, positive, major step forward? Absolutely so. We were able to eliminate the sales tax on energy used in manufacturing and in agriculture. That is critical. As you look at Georgia, agriculture is still our #1 industry. But over the years, we've been losing manufacturing jobs, not just overseas, but we've been losing them to Alabama and Tennessee and South Carolina. And one of the main reasons when you talk to manufacturers is because we're the only state in the Southeast that still charges a sales tax on energy. And some people say, well, why would you get rid of the sales tax on energy as opposed to some other areas of our economy? Well, the fact of the matter is that in manufacturing, energy is their single biggest cost driver after personnel. So unlike a retail store where energy is not a big item in their cost list, for a manufacturer it is enormous. And when you put us compared to Alabama and Tennessee and all of our neighboring states, we were getting hurt and we were becoming uncompetitive because of that 7% difference, at least a 7% difference. So we were able to phase that out. We believe we're going to be able to attract more major manufacturers, just like we did with Caterpillar, just like we did years ago with Kia. And when we do that, when companies come in and make $500 million or $1 billion investments, they're not going anywhere for a while. And that's why these manufacturers are so important to our economy. And we think we took a major step forward there. On top of that, we also began to phase out the marriage penalty in Georgia. It's almost criminal that we had a marriage penalty in Georgia. So we're telling you that if you're married, that's a good thing, and we want you to stay married, and the state shouldn't be penalizing you for it. So we're phasing that out. And we're getting rid of the dreaded birthday tax on automobiles, which, once you buy a car, it really ought to be yours. It ought not be the government having you pay kind of a yearly rent, which is what they do through the birthday tax. And we were able to get rid of that as well. And we're bringing back the sales tax holiday for back-to-school items and for the energy-efficient items. So overall, it was great tax policy. Not as good as it could have been, but it's a lot better than what we had going into the session. So I would consider it a success. For so many years, Georgia has had a problem where we lock up so many people or have people on probation or parole really at a rate higher than any state in the United States. If you look at the people that are actually incarcerated, probation and parole, you have a better chance of being in that criminal justice system in this state than any other state. That's not a good thing. And what happens, having a system like that is you have so many people that are convicted of some sort of violation of a criminal act, and then we put them in jail when there may be a better solution to that. We want to punish people. We need to punish people who violate our laws. But putting them in prison may not always be the best answer. And when they come out of prison, they're not necessarily going to be a productive citizen. And we don't want to continue that, year after year, generation after generation of crime. And this criminal justice reform, I think, really addressed it. We saw what happened in Texas when they did it. It saved them billions of dollars, and the system worked. We tried to replicate that here in Georgia, and it really comes down to a very, very simple fact. The people that we're scared of, we want to put in prison. The people that we're mad at just because they broke a law but we're not necessarily scared of, we need to find a different way to punish them so they can maintain being a productive member of society or become a productive member of society, as opposed to sitting in a jail where taxpayers are having to pay for them. So criminal justice reform was crucial. We passed a number of other bills this year dealing with protecting our children, making sure that, for example, if a child is abused at a young age, that statute of limitations does not run out prior to the age of 18. We've extended it past the age of 18. These are the type of things that we need to do to make sure that children in Georgia are protected. I mean, that's one of the callings of government. Government should be very limited. There's very few things that government ought to do. Making sure that children are protected is one of the things that we should be doing, and we took a pretty significant step this year.